has a happy ever after. And after this story, there's an after party.
Awesome. That's it. This is, we're gonna take this ball and we're gonna roll with it, and we'll just see where it goes, okay? And you know what? If it all turns into shit, I'll blame you.
I accept that blame. I mean, after all, you're talking to the person who has wrecked at least 5 podcasts.
That's okay. So I'm recording, so I'm just going to do my thing.
Do it.
Hey folks, I'm Sam Logsden, and this is Happy Ever After Party, and I'd like you all to give a warm welcome to my very good buddy Parker. Would you like to tell the fine folks what all you do, what you have done? Because you're no stranger to podcasting, that's for sure.
No, not a bit, actually. So, hi, I'm Parker Gibson. I used to do a podcast called LP and the Man way back in the day. I was on 40K Basement as a principal cast member and utter idiot. I also had a YouTube channel called Raven Squadron, where we would go through and, in very crass and coarse language, basically talk about X-Wing games as they were going on and run commentary. And quite frankly, it all sucked. But let's face it, it was fun and exciting. And I've done some guest hosting on podcasts and things before. So definitely not my first rodeo, but at the same time, this is my first venture into fairy tale podcasting. So I'm kind of stoked about this.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I think I've said this to you before, but I'll just reiterate it. When I watched The Witcher, I went into it being super excited about the lore mythology because, as we're probably going to talk about this, Polish and Slavic folklore and fairy tales is some of the more obscure things to try to research because none of it, like, for a very long time, it was never written down. It was all told orally. So it doesn't really have the same kind of like easily accessible kind of knowledge that you would get with like Celtic or Anglo-Saxon based fairy tales. So I was really excited going in there, but like the stuff that jumps out to me immediately has nothing to do with that, and it has everything to do with the filmmaking.
I am so excited to talk about that because I've got some. I really legit. I love the books and I love the story. The video games kick ass. The fighting and, quite frankly, the banging are just really spectacular stuff. But there's something
That's
about
why I need to read the books.
Yeah, but good gump having a heart attack. They did some things when they made this show that I mildly disagreed with. And that's putting it very mildly.
Yeah.
So,
before I feel like I'm going to rant a little bit about the filmmaking.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to just stick a little tiny pin in that for right now. Just because I kind of want to get your perspective from somebody who has played the games and read the books, because all I've done is watch the Netflix season 1 of The Witcher. My very first introduction to it was, have you ever seen Extra Credits?
I have not, no.
Okay, it's a YouTube channel. They do Extra Credits and Extra History, but Extra Credits is all about game theory and game design. So not necessarily like, when I say game theory, I mean like the actual application things that people go to school for of game theory, not like, who is Sans? No, not that. So they did a really good episode after The Witcher 3 came out about how, like, particularly that video game borrows a lot from old like pulp detective noir novels. Yeah,
I'm reading the liner notes on it right now. So they did a whole series, it looks like Romantic Dilemmas, how Witcher 3 builds character through choice. The animation of Witcher 3. Best detective game ever. Yeah, Witcher 3 was so good.
So like I've always sort of I've had an interest in it, but I suck at playing video games, so I tend not to play them just because of that. But I do enjoy watching other people play them. So like going into it, I was really looking forward to that too. Some I think if I could express any kind of, like, this is like a very neutral statement. This is both positive and negative, so it cancels each other out.
Sure.
The world of The Witcher is interesting, and I like it. There's a lot of things that are explained well. There's a lot of things that are explained poorly. And overall, the world building in the TV show is very poor.
Yeah, it sure is. Holy shit, is it not good?
But I can almost pinpoint to why it's bad. Not that the writing was lazy, but when you're playing a video game, like Skyrim is a really good example of this. You get people who exposition dump on you. And what you're supposed to do in a video game is you're supposed to approach people and ask for clarification. It's one of the things that makes video games intriguing. And it's like whoever was in charge of the screenplay for this used that logic, and it doesn't translate at all to the film. Because people like, okay, this is how bad it was. Queen Calanthe.
Yes.
All right. You see her. She dies. She's probably one of my favorite characters. I did not recognize her in the 4th episode.
Oh, shit. Really?
No, I didn't. Because I was like, oh, this is a really badass lady. She's like that badass lady from the very beginning of the show. And then it took me until it ended. Yeah, she was awesome. And I'm like, oh, wait, that's the lady who died in the 1st episode. How did I miss that?
That is one of my gigantic, massive bitches about this show. And so if we want to jump into how the world sort of operates, it legit helps watching that show if you have read the books and played the video games. Because if you've done that, all of a sudden this show is just like fucking fap time, because you're just going at it and you're literally mentally playing whack-a-mole with your Johnson while you are watching all of this just explode forth effervescently all over the screen. It's truly mental bukkake, and it's amazing. But
so, like, I not to interrupt you, but like to jump on that point. How do the monsters translate from the games to the show? Like, if you already knew, like, the Shriga, for example, not a lot of people know what the hell that is. You kind of have to do your Wikipedia diving to do that. But, like, is that something that's brought up in the books and the games? Like, do they actually kind of take their time explaining that a little bit more organically to people?
God, yeah. There's, like, not only are there organic explanations, but there are almost like guidebooks and things you learn as you're going through let's pick the video games, for instance, because there have been 3. Technically there are 4 if you want to count like the card game, because they actually took Gwent, which is the card game that exists inside of the game universe, inside of the Witcher universe, and they made an actual collectible card game out of it. So it's really kind of cool. Yeah, Gwent is it's an existing collectible card game that's fairly competitive. It's pretty interesting. And you play Gwent in the video game. You actually play the separate sub game Gwent in order to like do certain things. And
Isn't
then
that what they did in Final Fantasy VIII?
They might have. I'm not super familiar with the Final Fantasy series, but I feel like they did.
That was one of the things, is they had a game in the game that you had to play. I don't think they ever made it into a real card game, but okay. They did it for The Witcher. Awesome.
It's a legitimate Yo-Dog meme. It's a Yo-Dog, I heard you like games, so I'm going to make the game out of the game that you played in the game so you can game while you game. And it's just like explosions. So if we're thinking about, like, again, these, like in the video games where you learn all about these monsters, there are little guides. You learn about them as you're playing. You pick up hints. You say, oh, well, this particular kind of monster is weak to this thing, or I need to mix up this potion mixture that will help me have the reflexes in order to be able to beat up on that other thing. So you learn so much about them within the game itself, and you learn so much about them in the books, because the way the books kind of present this stuff, it is very much like a detective story. And like they 100% called it in this extra credits title, Best Detective Game Ever Made. The Witcher is in and of itself a great set of detective stories using fairy tales, because you got this dude who, honestly, for being somebody who goes around killing monsters, he kills some monsters, but sometimes he doesn't, because maybe it's not the monsters that need to kill him.
Yeah, like there's a really great scene. I think a lot of people like this episode, and I can kind of see why. The episode with the dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a little fawn-like monster, and like that knight that nobody cares about just hacks it up to pieces. And Geralt's just like, dude, if you would have fed it, it would have gone away. But he has that attitude with so many other kind of monsters, or even the oh my god, I can't remember his name, and his name is literally a pun. I can't remember it. The porcupine dude.
Oh shoot! Dang it!
God.
Wow,
it's like his name's literally like Quill or something like that. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick. Well,
Urchin.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Urchin. That's it.
Yeah. So specifically, there's actually a pretty neat. When I was doing a little bit of poking about, Urchin is, I swear to God, another one of those Arn Thompson Uther type 425Cs, and 425C is good old Beauty and the Beast. The you just have to fix him trope.
Ooh.
So Urchin is very much he's one of those kind of characters, beast-like character. The power of love turns him back into a dude. Look, we just fixed him. All we did was love.
Yeah.
Damn it.
So, but even with him, like, he was really quick to say, like, that is not a monster. That is a human who has been cursed. Yeah. And like, Calanthe was having none of it. Yeah. But I think I will say that. With his character, he's, brooding, and that's usually an archetype that I can't stand. Yeah. But he's the kind of person who's, like, again, kind of going back to, like, the detective thing. Like, he has an air of mystery about him, but literally all you have to do is ask. He will tell you what is wrong. He's not, like, saying that I'm so high above you that you won't understand me. It's just like, I just don't have the spoons to do my exposition, and honestly, I can help you in so many better ways. So he's a really compelling character in that sense, that he's like, he's not that cold, but he's also not overly compassionate. Like he's like maybe a slightly less charismatic Han Solo or Indiana Jones in that regard.
So that all goes back to how they make Witchers. So how familiar are you with the process?
So, again, I didn't really look into it all that much outside of what Netflix told me, but from context clues, I assumed it's how they make Orokai.
Not exactly, but
with less dead body parts.
Less dead body parts and more dead kids. So the creation of the Witcher, the creation of Witchers in general, is now, again, this is me kind of operating from memory, so if I'm a little off, that's my bad. Totally blame me for any factual mistakes.
This is Happy Ever After Party. It took me and Amanda like 3 different tries to remember Giancarlo Esposito's name.
And am I the only one that whenever I hear his last name, I always think of Despacito?
You are not.
Okay, that's cool. I just
not alone.
Swear to God, I hear his last name, I start going Despacito. Da, 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 da. It's real dumb. So basically, Witchers are created much like Space Marines are created in Warhammer 40K, much like any kind of storytelling genetic superhero is made. You start, or like you go back to Halo, even. And you're starting off with a kid, and that kid is picked for a reason. Now, there are reasons within the universe that people become Witchers, but that's neither here nor there. So you start off with a kid, and then you take this kid to be trained. And so you put this kid through grueling physical training, and not all kids make it through the physical part.
Yeah,
And
they said that in the show.
And then in addition to that, Kat just knocked a rock off of the cat tree. It's one of her favorite things to do. It's our cat Gigi, after the cat from Kiki's Delivery Service. So you've got these kids, and some don't make it through the physical, and then some don't make it through various points where they have to go out and occasionally work with elder witchers and slay some crap. But where it really gets gross is, by the way, as I jump into this, you ever play Dragon Age? Are you familiar with Dragon Age at all?
I'm familiar with it.
Okay, that's fine. So
I am familiar, and I'll just leave it at that.
That's perfectly fine. The reason why I bring up Dragon Age is that how in Dragon Age you got to drink the Dark One blood in order to basically become the protagonist, right?
Yeah. It's a very gross game.
So in The Witcher, there is the Trial of the Grasses. And the Trial of the Grasses are where you take this stupendous potion that is just poisonous as all get out. And one of the ways that kids get weeded out of the Witcherverse, aka become fertilizer, is they fail at various points of being able to absorb and metabolize the poisons that one must consume in order to become a Witcher. And then when you get to the final Trial of the Grasses, that's where the metal meets the road right there. That's where if you're gonna really screw up, that's where you just die easy, because so many people don't make it through that trial, and they just become fertilizer.
Like literally become fertilizer.
Literally become fertilizer. They are deader than doornails. And the process, the consumption of that massive amount of poison and the alchemical mutations that are brought out rob witchers of a lot of outward emotion. They tend to be very, very sort of taciturn persons, because they don't really, they've had so much taken from them. They don't have families anymore. They live a lot longer than anybody else around them. They live far, far longer than normal human lifespans. So they go around banging and blasting, and they bury lovers because they just outlive them. And so that kind of longevity, that kind of alchemical mutation, that kind of just fierce, I'm making a buck by literally stabbing a monster to death, really kind of wears on them to the point where they just don't really have the emotional capacity that, us Joe Blow normies have. So that's why I thought Henry Cavill did it so brilliantly. He had that kind of gruff, but he also had those flashes of humanity, because Geralt is a Witcher unlike others. He's got more compassion than other Witchers do.
Yeah, and it's almost like, not to get political or anything, but it's a little like when you talk about toxic masculinity, a lot of the discussion can focus around things like PTSD, especially things like soldiers. If you think of typical tropes, like if we're going back into our little noir things, the man who saw too much during the war and he's just drinking himself into a coma. You can do that, and you can kind of let all of those expectations weigh you down and become a shell of your former self. And it's kind of nice to see him not succumb to that completely. He's clearly a Witcher for every reason you just said. He was able to survive all of those trials, but at a really big cost. And it kind of seems like the Geralt we're seeing right now is like one who's at the most peace with himself. And I'm sure there've been versions of him where he was not that peaceful with who he is. I'm sure maybe in other games or maybe earlier on in the books, that might have been the case where he really just did kind of succumb to the typical brooding hero that we're so used to seeing. But I'm, like you said, I'm really happy that Henry kind of took the time to, get subtlety in that character and, know when to smile, know when to, Just, oh God, I'm gonna have to talk about
Yes,
Yaskier here. I'm gonna have to
you
talk
sure
about
are.
Yaskier.
Yeah. By the way,
Fuck.
in the books, he's called Dandelion, which is really kind of funny because Dandelion is the translation of Jaskier, and
Okay, I'm just gonna call him
it's
Dandelion.
and here's the fun part, right? They
Hmm.
changed so many things in like the English translations. Like they
Hmm.
changed some names around. Geralt is Geralt, sure. They changed around a bunch of names, but yet and they kept a lot of the book style English translation changes in the series, but yet
Hmm.
Dandelion went back to Jaskier. I thought that was really kind of neat.
Oh, okay.
It's
Yeah.
just one of those random goofball observations. I mean, sorry that you're probably expecting some massive amount of like insights. Like, nope, they just kept his name the original fucking Polish. So I thought it
I
was really cool.
It makes sense. Um, Joey Beatty does a fine job with the script he was given. Um, I usually like bards. I like to play bards. I'm currently
Uh-huh.
in a D&D campaign where I'm playing a gnomish bard. Um,
Hell yeah.
I hate his character.
I know, right? Isn't he
I
perfect?
hate it so much. Like, I feel like this is flip-flop because most of the time I would
Hmm.
be booing the brood and cheering on the bard, and it's completely flipped. And I was
Yeah.
so happy when after the dragon story
Uh-huh.
was, reaching its conclusion that he just fucked off and we didn't have to hear from him for another like one or two episodes. I was so happy. And I know that in season 2, he's going to come back because you can't tell me he's not going to come back. The fans have dictated it. He's basically the Tyrion of The Witcher, depending on how many seasons they're actually going to do of this. He's not going to die. And that fucking sucks because
Well,
he is so annoying. And no, he is not a balance to Geralt at all. No. That is like saying, hey, I have a like a whole liter of wine, and to
uh-huh.
counteract that with sobriety, um I'm gonna eat one pedophore and nothing else. That's what
I,
this
w-
is like.
I was more thinking of like a tea sandwich that a dog is shit on to counterbalance the goodness. But
No, it's more like Geralt is the pedophore
yeah. Oh my
and
God.
Dandelion is the leader of wine.
I swear to God, the thing that I like about Yaski or Dandelion the most is that
Hmm.
he is a bit of a pile of shit.
Hmm.
In the video games, he shows up and like, gets Geralt to go along on some cracker ass adventure. And like he's all like the thing about Geralt and Dandelion in the video games and the books, Geralt is always saving his ass because Dandelion is just literally just sleeping his way through everything. And
Hmm.
in a way, Geralt is too, but that's kind of a subtext of the video games and the books is that Geralt is a bit of a coxman, so to speak.
Hmm.
But Dandelion though takes it to another level. Dandelion he is the stereotypical horny bard who is just strumming and pumping his way everywhere. And he always finds a way to get somebody who wants to literally end his life because he done
Hmm.
porked the wrong person. And Geralt really saves his ass so much, and they really do kind of bond as characters at certain
Hmm.
points. But this kind of goes back to like the world building and how we talked about the like things a little bit in the beginning. And I don't want to jump too far ahead, but some bitch, if they could actually have just said, like, a few years ago, 20 years later, at any
Yeah,
point in that fucking story, pardon me for just going a little off for a moment, if they could have
it's okay.
just given us some time frames, then you wouldn't have to have been as intimately aware of the universe as I am for everything to make sense.
Okay, I actually am going to extrapolate on that a little bit. I'm
Please.
not mad about the way that they did the time convergence.
Uh-huh.
That didn't bother me too much. I think it would have been like to a certain extent, I actually think it was clever. Like once you knew that that's what was happening, you could kind of weave everything together and like see everything funneling into the same point.
Yeah.
I get that. But I feel like because the world building was so weak, it was really, really hard to figure that out. And if you didn't have the patience for fantasy, like a lot of people like to get into fantasy every once in a while. Like it's a nice genre. It's one of my favorites. But stuff like that, you know, can really test someone's patience with a show. And that was something I admired how they did it, but it would have been better suited if they took the time to explain things a little bit more or a little bit more easily. Because it has like a weird kind of contradictory problem where it doesn't explain enough and it explains too much. Like one of the facets of the show that I really liked because they took the time to explain so many things and showed it, you know, was the mage academies. Yeah. The mage and witch academies. And even like right at the beginning of the second episode when Tisea was basically explaining that and you actually said the word magic is alchemical in this universe. Yeah. Everything has to be done in accordance of balancing things. You know, sometimes the best thing a flower can do is die. And it's so solid and put together. But this is also where we're introduced to the geography and who's the ruler of what land. So when all the big people get together and talk about it, you don't know what exactly they're talking about. Like you have an idea, but they're just literally throwing names left and right. And we're like, we haven't even been to these places. You're talking about people that we haven't seen yet. And I think there's quite a few people that we just never see in the show. You're right. And it's really clunky. It's so clunky. So it's like the times that we get explanations, it's like done in one sitting and it's very hard to digest. That's one of the reasons why I had trouble recognizing Calanthe right away, is because so much of the show you have to really pay attention to, and it overwhelms you with all these people, even people you never see, that characters just leave your mind. Like, I honestly thought Renfrey was going to be a lot more important.
So
she is. Technically she is. Technically she is, and I understand her functionality, but I feel a rant coming on. I'm going to let you indulge in that.
So I love the Renfrey character. I love her to pieces. I love that she's Snow White. I love that in the book they make reference to it. They don't really reference it that much in the show, but that, you know, she had a gang of 7 dwarves that she ran around with for a long time.
Oh, that's badass.
I mean, she is literally Snow White. She was like the huntsman who was sent out, you know, to take her heart, ended up, I think, trying to assault her, and she killed him. And that's what started her on her badassedness. Yeah. And so it's this, I love how the Renfrey character is just like, this is Snow White. If Snow White had really been a hardcore badass mutant killer, if for lack of a better term. And I loved it. And there's a line that she says that I swear to God shaped my life for a hot minute. And it was that line where she said, at some point, you're going to have to make a choice. And you're never going to know whether you made the right one.
Yeah.
That line, because I seem to recall it being, I can't remember if it's exactly in the books like that, because sometimes the books are a little bit on the scant side, but because this was, after all, a super short story. This was like a short story in The Last Wish, because the way that the
Yeah.
books are written, like there's a collection of loosely tied together short stories, and then like a little bit of exposition woven between them. And then those collections of short stories are kind of stuck in between these massive novel length overarching plots. Like there were parts of, I think there were parts of like 4 or 5 books and 2 video games in this first season, which, because they took a lot of stuff out of Last Wish, and then they brought in like a lot of this kind of like the King Killer stuff that's going to be coming up. You can tell it's already going to be there. Ciri doesn't even really pop into existence in the first book. Ciri doesn't come into play, I think, until which one is it? Not Last Wish, but I think Blood of Elves. We start to hear a little bit about Ciri, and they really heavily kind of dinked around with the story of Ciri, at least in how she interacts with Geralt to begin with. But again, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, and I do like her story, the way that the show told it.
Yeah.
It's just I like, it all felt very visceral, again, just because I love Queen Calanthe so much. And what's her name? Jodie May. She is a fantastic actress.
Yeah, she's so good.
Like I bought her character. And I bought the girl who plays Ciri too. Like you know from listening to me and Amanda, like we don't like to pick on child actors, but we'll be honest if they get on our nerves. And I liked her as Ciri because it was like, you know, she made herself known to the people who weren't in the same class as her. And she wasn't afraid to get dirty and all that stuff, but she was naive to the point where they'd be like, "Oh, we're like 100% accepting that, you know, you have a bed and you never have to worry about food. And, you know, sure, we'll gamble with you and you could take our money. That's not like taxation, you know?" So like there was like that bit of naivete, but she was also like very cutthroat to a certain extent. Like, she knew how to be smart to survive, but also still very, like, openly trusting. Like, it was a very believable performance. And my issue isn't, like, overall, I can say that my issue that I had with the show had nothing to do with the acting. Even Jaskier, I don't have a problem with the way he was acted. His script was awful. You know? And he's definitely a byproduct of like modern day improv comedy. So I can't really fault the actor for that. I can't. That's also my personal preference. I know that a lot of people are going to at me with that, and that's fine. I know he was a bit of a fan favorite, but I couldn't stand him.
He's a fucking nitwit.
Yeah.
That's what he is. He's a dingbat. He's a dingbat, and he's really unlikable. And if you ever actually encountered a Jaskier out in the wild, you would alternate between punching him in the mouth and taking his lunch money.
Yeah, pretty much.
But meanwhile, he's banging your wife, your girlfriend, your girlfriend's boyfriend, your wife's mistress, and your uncle, because that's who he is.
Just like in the wedding episode, you know, the one time we really see Geralt save his life is more or less like convincing a nobleman. He didn't bang your wife. He's a eunuch. And, you know, he got really upset by that. And he's like, dude, I just saved her life. Just watch it.
Just let it be.
So, world building. Again, I can't. Something that's really important to the show that I appreciate, but also am frustrated with, is it took a very long time to explain how the trope of destiny and fate is not actually a trope. Like when you talk about fantasy and you talk about you know, like somebody being the savior, when you talk about the hero's journey and all that stuff, it could get very repetitious.
Yeah.
But The Witcher kind of gets around that in a way that's really clever because they make destiny mechanical. It goes back to the laws of alchemy.
Hmm.
You don't just have something be destiny because of something somebody else said necessarily. Well, sometimes it is, but
Yeah.
there is an actual reason for it. There is
Yeah.
an affirmation that is set,
Hmm.
and that has to be complete, or else very catastrophic things happen. I think if you added the combined running time to get to that point, it
Yeah.
takes the show maybe 4 or 4.5 hours to make that point.
Yeah.
Um,
It sure does,
there
actually.
There is an episode of Regular Show, the cartoon,
Hmm.
that's about 11 minutes long. And about 2 minutes into that episode, they give a much better explanation of destiny as a mechanic than The Witcher does. You can look it up. It's on. If you folks out there have not seen Regular Show, you don't have to watch all of it. It's very episodic. Like, you can waste 11 minutes of your life, but the episode entitled "Can You Do Me a Solid" explains destiny in a much more concise manner that is identical to how it is in the Witcher series, but explained much better.
Yeah, I've got it pulled up on my YouTube. I'll check it out after the call, after our casting today. I'll check that out.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing. I like it. Like, the actual magic in the show, up to a point, is very well explained, but then there's also this kind of problem that I have.
Okay.
And going back to this idea of destiny.
Yeah.
On a much more serious note, the prophecy gets mentioned.
Mhm.
I don't actually know what the prophecy is. I don't know if it was like, maybe I stepped out of the room and I missed it, or maybe they're just talking about it and intentionally being vague. And something that I want to ask you in regards to the books and the video games,
Yeah.
is a prophecy gone about in the same way that destiny in Fate is?
That is
Like,
a tough question.
because, like, again, like with the law of surprise, you
Right.
are creating destiny. With
Yeah.
other kinds of like affirmative contracts involving magic,
Yeah.
you have to say something and it becomes done. It's basically like a spell.
Yeah.
There's an actual narrative purpose for stuff like that
Yeah.
isn't just, oh, some guy wrote about it thousands of years ago and it's going to happen. That's not how it works. There's like an actual like law of magic, so to speak, just like any other kind of magic in this universe. So for
Yeah.
a prophecy to be a thing, does it work the same way, or is the prophecy just a prophecy as we're used to seeing it in other media?
You know, I'm sitting here racking my brain trying to think about the different ways that prophecy kind of appears within the video games and the books. And this is
Okay.
the point at which basically everybody, I'm sure, that who hasn't already added you is going to at me. And they're going to say, Parker, you dumbass. You don't remember blankety blank, blank, blank. Well, get bent. Sometimes it's difficult to think on your feet and create. So,
When you're this old, you can't remember everything.
yes,
Get off my porch.
once you get to like 40 plus, once you get in your mid 40s, it's just like, holy Jesus, I need my
Oh.
Metamucil and I need a diaper. So, I really honestly feel like that prophecy is treated like kind of like how we normally look at prophecy, but there's a lot of shit wrapped up in Siri. Siri is basically a nexus of meaning in the universe. And I can't really. So here's a question for you. How spoilery do you want to get?
A spoiler alert.
You may spoil.
Okay. So I want to talk about Urcheon and how important Urcheon is.
So this is Ciri's dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
the Porcupine Man.
Yeah, Urcheon, which by the way, I've got the article up about Urcheon because I want to get this right. Basically, Urcheon is a translation of hedgehog.
Well, no shit, because like you think of sea urchin.
Yeah.
I didn't even need to look that up. I knew that was a pun.
Yeah. Yeah. So
It
yeah,
wasn't
basically.
very...
So here's the fucking deal about Urcheon.
Okay. What's his damage?
He's the Emperor of Nilfgaard.
No!
Yeah.
No!
He becomes the Emperor of Nilfgaard.
When?
Well, he's the heir of the Emperor of Nilfgaard, and like is like basically.
Did they say that in the show?
No, you kind of have to know it.
Oh
That's
my
why I
god!
said,
Because Nilfgaard was there. Nilfgaard was at the wedding.
Yeah, he was like basically Urcheon was
he exiled
son,
because of his curse?
Well, basically he was the son of the emperor at the time, and the emperor was deposed and imprisoned and tortured. There's a coup that happened, and there was a sorcerer who was working for the usurper, who basically became the new emperor, turned Urcheon into Urcheon because his name was Emhyr, Emhyr, because technically Emhyr in a Nilfgaardian dialect meant Urcheon, an old name for a hedgehog. That's why he got the Urcheon name. So then Emhyr got out, ended up traveling to Sintra. He used the name Duny Urcheon of Erlenwald, and then that's how he ended up. He met the King Rogner, and after he saved him, he invoked the law of surprise. But little was he supposed to know, because it's the whole thing about law of surprise, and that's like when we talk about destiny and we talk about almost kind of like fate in the universe. That law of surprise is a real humdinger. I love it. And
yeah, it's great. I almost wish that there was a way to do that, like in D&D, in a way that isn't like horribly contrived. Like, I wish that there was like an actual mechanical, like basically the deck of many things, but it's what you're going to inherit.
Yeah. That could be a fun mechanic. I might have to sit around and tinker with that.
Yeah,
This could require some extra off-cast chatting about how to make a deck of many things that actually invokes law of surprise.
Yeah, Dennis, if you're listening, I will include you.
Sounds perfect. So the thing about there's Urcheon, right? And then Urcheon goes and he helps out Rogner, and then of course there's Pavetta, Princess Pavetta, who is is pregnant. Oh, sorry. I got to back up a couple seconds. So Pavetta is the daughter of Calanth, and Rogner.
Yes.
And then here we turn around, and Pavetta is the person that is law of surprise bonded to Urcheon, and all that razzmatazz, and everything kind of goes around. They basically become married, and then what ends up happening is Duny returns to Nilfgaard and retakes and like basically retakes things. And this, and the fact that, Ciri disappears, I don't want to give too awfully much away, but the whole point is that all the Nilfgaardian pursuit of Ciri has a pretty heavy tie-in going all the way back to Rogner's Law of Surprise.
Yeah.
So that's
gosh.
That's why Urcheon is such this. He's a goofball character, and you just go la da 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 da. Love saved him, but no, he turns into a stone cold son of a bitch. So it is. It's a very fun thing. So fun.
Yeah. That's. Ooh.
Yeah.
God, I should probably read the books. It'd probably be more
I've
interesting.
got I've got all 8 of them if you ever want to borrow them sometime.
I might. Um,
So they're quality.
so, let's see here. I feel like there was something that I wanted to do, like kind of piggybacking off of it, and it'll come to me in a second. But
That's all.
let's talk monsters.
Yeah.
Let's talk Strigas.
So what
that
do we want to talk about at Strigas?
the umbilical cord made me laugh.
Yeah, it sure did, didn't it? So gross.
Yes. It's every like I do love that too about all the monsters here, especially the first one that you see, the Kraken with the baby head. Like
Yeah.
that is a hell of a way to get you on the same page with everybody else. This also ties in a little bit with what Extra Credit was saying about kind of comparing this to a noir, not any detective story, but specifically American pulp detective stories, where the monster of the day is some of the most interesting stuff in the show. It really is. I would actually go as far as to say that it's actually probably better executed than the overarching plot, especially with the first couple of episodes before you realize, oh, wait, we're funneling time together.
Yeah.
So while that's all going on, it's a very big strong suit, but they mumble half of the words, so I can't pronounce any of them right. Striga's probably the exception. So in that episode, they think that it's something else, and I can imagine that the thing that they think it is a werewolf, but the Polish version of a werewolf.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly. I'm gonna have to pop up the name of the episode really quickly, because the thing about Striga in particular is that it's an Albanian legend. Like so a Striga is a vampiric witch in Albanian mythology and folklore. And the way that they kind of bent it on its head is that normally the Striga will like suck the blood out of infants while they sleep, and then they turn into a flying insect. And they say that only the Striga herself could cure those that she's drained off. And they always tend to, or at least most of the time, they tend to portray a Striga as like this kind of horribly disfigured woman with this hateful stare. I'm always kind of quoting from the Wikipedia article. And those who never got cured from the bite of the Striga would, get sick and die.
Yeah.
And there's also kind of this sort of take on it where like it's some from northern Albanian folklore that a woman isn't born a witch, she becomes one. Again, kind of quoting from the Wikipedia here, often because she is childless or made evil by envy, and a strong belief in God could make people immune to a witch. I know it ain't feminist, that's for sure.
It's fine. It's fine. We're used to this here.
Right.
Being childless is the mark of the devil. I've come to accept it, and my stepkid basically has accepted me as the best evil stepmother.
Perfect.
So I take it.
I love it.
It's kind of weird too, because there's almost like a tie-in between like, oh my God, crap, I hate this. This is why I hate the show so much and why I love it, is because you get the comparisons of women who aren't providing society with more children. So they're seen as sort of like, they're seen as rodents of sorts, almost like leeching off of the system. And then you have this imagery of ugly, heinous, women-like creatures biting people and those getting infected. So they're almost seen as like bugs or other kinds of vermin that create plague. So this kind of like
parasitical in a way.
Yeah, very parasitic, and like, yeah, actually that's the perfect word, because, in terms of finances and what you're worth to society and also literal parasites. Like that imagery is very striking. And good for her. I don't care. Just like keep killing people, baby. You do you.
And the fun part about the Striga herself in that story is that, like, she almost ends Geralt's life.
Yeah.
And in the book, The Last Wish, the interlude scenes are basically Geralt convalescing because he has damn near gotten his throat ripped out by this Striga, who, like, we come to find out she ends up, like, going on to, like, require some care and living. But so here's a random side note. You did catch the fact that the little boy and the little girl who were playing in the wedding scene.
Yeah, that was her parents.
Yeah, exactly.
And they were brother and sister. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So
yeah. I've seen Flowers in the Attic. You can't fool me.
So the Last Wish book, there's all these kind of interlude scenes where, you know, Geralt is talking to various like soothsayers, and he's convalescing at this place where he's welcome, but like nobody else in the surrounding area wants him there. And there's a big showdown that occurs in the book that's really brilliant. I'm not going to spoil that too much, but it's a quite fun little showdown between Geralt and some local knights errant who want to make a big deal out of smacking him around. And of course,
oh my
come
goodness,
to realize what happens when one fucks with a Witcher.
Good.
It's quality. Oh, it's so quality.
Awesome.
Yeah, I swear I could watch Henry Cavill fucking eat porridge. I mean, my God, him as the Witcher is so brilliant
and hot.
And that's Superman. I mean, for real, that's Superman.
I didn't realize that was him.
Yeah, Henry Cavill is freaking Superman.
I know, and it. Oh gosh. There's almost part of me that wants to talk about Yennefer. Almost being the key word. Like, she's hot.
She's so problematic, though. There's a bunch of problematic shit about her, and like my wife and I have gotten into discussions. Like, so my wife Leah, she said, you know, I wish that she wouldn't have given up her hump.
Me too. Like, she kept her scars, which I was like, okay, good move. But it's like, I kind of just wish that she stayed deformed, but only did the pretty thing as an illusion.
That would have been cool.
That would have been awesome.
The other thing I was gonna say, God, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
I think we're gonna talk about the same thing.
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay, so screw it. I'm gonna hop in.
Is it the ovaries?
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah, it's the ovaries.
It's so here's the deal, right? I don't have an issue with maybe giving up fertility for magic. I don't think I have the issue with that. I have the issue with her as a character being, fuck kids, I don't need kids, I don't need anything, and going all Super Saiyan. But then spazzing out so much and having so much of her character motivation tied into wanting to have kids so much. It really just it feels like it super robbed her of development, you know? Maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way, but
so I have ovaries and I have a uterus, and it's a very complicated thing because on the one hand, when you're talking about the subject of choice, you should always be able to choose what you want.
Sure.
And from a certain perspective, I actually don't have a problem with the idea of somebody making that choice when they were younger and abused and wanted more power and seeing that as a fair trade. And this is where the time issue comes in too.
Yeah.
I really need to know how long it's been. Like, obviously, Hump Yennefer happened long before the initial Law of Surprise.
Yeah.
With Geralt and Ciri, okay?
Yes.
That happened before. But
Yes.
I have
Decades.
no idea how long it's been since the ovaries were out and her almost killing herself trying to get them back with the gin. If I
So,
would have had a concrete understanding, and I'm just talking about the show here, if I would have
yeah.
had a concrete understanding of that,
Mhm.
I might have been able to accept it. But the problem is the way that she goes about doing it and some of the other things she does, it's
Mhm.
very clearly written by people who don't have ovaries. Like,
Yeah.
somebody who wants a baby that badly would not have been that nonchalant about burying a dead baby in the sand.
Let's see. What episode was it where she buries the baby?
I think it was episode 3. It might have been episode 4 with the wedding.
Yeah, because the reason why I bring it up is I'm looking at Wikipedia's got the Witcher TV series and who wrote each episode and such. Like episode 3 was written by Bo DeMeo, which it sounds like a fairly male name. Episode 4 was written by Declan DeBarra. Yes, that's Declan DeBarra wrote the 4th episode. But the first 2 episodes, one was written by Lauren Schmidt-Hisrich,
Yeah.
and the other one was written by Jenny Klein.
Oh,
Those
okay.
First 2 episodes. So they had. So it looks like women wrote those. Haley Hall wrote the 6th episode. Lauren Schmidt-Hisrich wrote episode 8.
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. That makes a whole lot of sense. Because, you can't... How can I put this? You can't say that somebody suddenly deciding to have children to have self-worth isn't feminist or isn't character development. Because if you have somebody who's lived... I think at one point in the show, she kind of says, I've lived enough for 3 lifetimes. So she's pretty fucking old. So kind of in parallel to what the dragon said, parenthood is going to be a new adventure. It's going to be my last adventure. So, the fact that she was a part of that journey, I think speaks volumes and sort of why her and Geralt had that fight at the end.
Yeah.
But again, everything leading up to that wasn't really nothing really happened to her character. Nothing about the way she reacted was, convincing or written with somebody who would understand what that kind of process is like or what it means to, suddenly have that urge. I mean, I didn't think that I'd have kids ever. And, the fact that I'm in a relationship now that is stable and, I'm a co-parent.
Yeah, I got a step spawn.
That, yeah, it's a beautiful situation that I don't think I would have ever appreciated at a younger age. So I get that.
Sure.
But to almost kill yourself with a gin to get your ovaries back?
It was, what it was? I think really the thing that kind of hacked me off the most is that, and maybe I'm repeating some of what you were saying earlier, it's almost like she sort of went from sitting at the stoplight to going 150 miles an hour down the road, and we never got to see the acceleration process.
That's a good way to put it.
We never got to see her start to think more and more about kids. We never got to see her look at a kid and get that twinge and go cry someplace. We never got to see her express through exposition that she damned the wizards for taking her ability to produce children. I mean, I think there's a throwaway line somewhere in the series, where she's talking to Zaya, basically she never knew the cost, or if she had known the cost, she wouldn't have said yes, or something along those lines.
Which is bullshit.
Yeah, she would have jumped on it in a heartbeat, and she did then, and she was fine with it. Like, fuck it, don't want kids? I don't want my kids to have humps. Let me at it.
Basically.
So, what? They're going to go be pig persons? Fuck it. I don't want kids. So.
Oh dear.
So the whole point is that we don't get to see her accelerate. We don't get to see her become more desperate. Maybe we don't get to see her. I don't know if this would even be something that could be done tastefully. Maybe we don't get to see her work her way through a bunch of dudes trying to hope that maybe it's one of them that can knock her up.
It would, from based on what you've said and a couple of other people, it would at least be consistent with the games.
Yeah, right. Good God. Like the first game was actually pretty offensive because you got collectible cards when you would bang somebody.
Oh my God.
Like you would get like this, oh, check it out, I got the busty maid. And you get like this almost like memory card. They're like, oh, it's like titties. It's like, holy shit.
That's terrible.
The first game was pretty, it's like, come on, CD Projekt Red, you should be better than that shit.
Could you at least do the same thing with men?
I don't think you could fuck men in the video games.
Oh, God damn it.
Geralt didn't swing both ways.
See, that I would actually would make me less pissed off is if you could like bang men and also get collectible cards from like the eminent twinks in the area. Yeah. I would be for that. That's good. You have to have like a business card somehow.
Absolutely. There has to be just some sort of like, aha, check it out. I have banged the many people. This is my card.
The medieval fantasy sex worker trading card game. Cards. Yeah, like screw whatever like collectible trading Witchers game you were talking about. I want the sex workers game.
Yeah,
Make that playable.
I love
and throw it. I know it has nothing to do with it, but just like throw in something that's basically like the equivalent of the lusty Argonian maid. Just throw one in there, and I will be happy.
That'd be brilliant. Oh shit! But I swear, just I really like Yennefer, and I like how ass kicking she is, and I like that she went for it. She's one of those characters that went for it. She started off not knowing shit, and she stuck with it, and through guile and through all sorts of things, she went after it and got it. And she paid
a literal revenge body.
Yeah.
That's probably the only reason why I don't mind the hump being gone is for that one current pop culture reference.
Yeah, she literally went through and got the revenge body. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah. And somehow, like, it tattooed her eye makeup permanently, I'm assuming.
Yeah, apparently.
Because she has the same eye makeup as Hot Yennefer and not Hump Yennefer.
Yeah, so I guess that she has like maybe a part of Humpifer when she was born. She was just given like permanent coal in the eyes,
Basically.
That must have been a mutation at birth.
Oh my gosh.
But great character at points, but at other points it's like, son of a bitch, could we have not done better?
Yeah, sadly, I think it's like anything that has to do with the mages is kind of where I can tell the writers changed. Because with everything else, like with Geralt, you basically have a monster of the day with some mention of destiny thrown in here or there, with the exception of the wedding episode, which is sort of like our backstory.
Yeah.
The thing with Ciri, it's kind of nebulous and mysterious all throughout, and you're seeing it through a child's perspective. So there's a lot of playroom there. So as long as she acts the same, you can kind of mess around with that as much as you want. And Yennefer's point of view is sort of like the thing that kind of glues everything together, because that's where like the magic and the politics are really intertwined. Yeah. And that's kind of where a lot of the things fall apart too, because there isn't consistency there. And that's the thing that needs to be the most stable. So I think, like that's, if I had to point one little area, like one part of those three main parts that's the weakest, it might be that, but it's also the best explained. So it's sort of a hot mess, but I enjoyed it.
What do you think would have happened? This is just kind of like asking you to kind of maybe do a little supposition here. What do you think would have happened if Yennefer would have ended up in Nilfgaard? Because, Yennefer didn't want to go to Nilfgaard. She wanted to go to the other place.
Oh, everything would have been set on fire. I think with how is the one thing I worry about, but also admire about the character is how power hungry she becomes. She goes from being completely helpless, like she's not a full Anakin, but she's definitely Anakin inspired. Like she comes from a place where she has nothing, not a single thing. And that ability, that raw talent that she has for magic is enough to drive her to, do with it as much as she can. And she's a very flawed person too, to the point where she sort of denounces the the mage society and ends up practicing magic on her own after everything that happens. She basically becomes like a 2-bit magician in an area where there's no magic. So of course she's going to stand out. She's very narcissistic in that particular regard. But
actually, it's more than that. Magic's outlawed in that area.
Yeah. So you look at Fringilla and how swept up in the prophecy she became, and how devoted to it that she was, and the kind of going back to the alchemy, she's just turning people into dust to left and right just to make sure that they get to the area where they're supposed to be going. She doesn't have a problem with that. And I think if Yennefer went to Nilfgaard with all everything else being the same, they would not have had the time to have a council and get together and try to stop things. I think that while she isn't the most powerful, she's definitely the most determined. Yeah. And I think even to a certain point, Tiseo was as rough with her as she was because she was so, using her word, chaotic. And she even says that, when they're battling, it's just let the chaos go, because she knew that. So if she was on the other side, I don't think there'd be as much of a story.
Yeah, I think that we put Yennefer in Nilfgaard, and pretty soon everybody, the entire fucking continent is Nilfgaard. because
I don't
Yennefer
think she would need the prophecy.
Nah.
She wouldn't even need to believe in it. She would just do it for the sake of being the most powerful nation and the most powerful witch by extension.
Yep, she would have literally just set everything on fire just to watch the world burn. That would be Yennefer in a nutshell in Nilfgaard.
And then she probably wouldn't have the urge to have children because there wouldn't be a dead baby. There'd be a lot more dead babies, but I don't think she'd be as heartbroken about it.
Yeah, to borrow from the Dragon Age universe, there's a when you're playing the first video game, Dragon Age Origins, there's a part where obviously it, like any of the other BioWare games, your goal is to try and get your companions up to a certain loyalty rating, because then they will be able to do certain things and their storylines become complete and so on. So you get them happy and shit works, right? But there's a point in there where you have the ability to do something called hardening. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's where what happens is you put them through a deliberate kind of a bad thing, or you put them through this, you make a choice in their character development, and that enables them to harden themselves and not be so soft, for lack of a better term. And if certain characters are hardened at certain points, then they have a significantly larger chance of surviving a certain thing that happens in the game at various points to various characters. So I feel like that Yennefer in Nilfgaard would have been hardened. She would have been hardened a long time before she saw her first dead baby. And she wouldn't have given a fuck. And because she wasn't again, just to borrow, not to speak about anything else except just talking about the video game mechanic, because she wasn't hardened when she saw that dead baby, then that's what kind of set her on the path of attempting to recapture her lost ability to become a mother.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. It's like I said, I'm interested in reading the books because it's like there was a lot of potential in that series, and it did get better as I watched it. Just because I feel like when the show shows things instead of tells them, that's when it's at its strongest, and I really admired that. And again, coming from a Polish work of art, we don't really get that here too often.
Yeah.
I'm not really going to rate the show necessarily, just because I have a lot of mixed emotions about it.
Yeah.
But it was ambitious, and I think I'm more excited about season 2.
Oh yeah.
Than I would be for rewatching this season.
So speaking of season 2, this has been in the news, so this isn't spoiler. But Christopher Hivju, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, like Hivju, something like that. He was in Game of Thrones, and he was the big orange-haired guy in Game of Thrones.
Yes,
he has basically been almost positively confirmed to be Nivellen in season 2. So Nivellen is part of the Last Wish storyline. Sorry, the Last Wish book. And in particular, the reason why Nivellen is so interesting is because he is the character from A Grain of Truth, which is the actual Beauty and the Beast retell.
Yeah.
That is in the Last Wish. So he's going to be Nivellen.
Oh my gosh, I am very excited about that.
Yeah, super stoked. I am super excited. See, I thought I'd give you something to look forward to, right?
Yes. Let me just see him real quick. Oh my gosh. You know what I love about Christopher? Hivju, if that is how you say it.
Yeah. I'm not sure myself.
I have no idea. But I can't find a single picture of that actor where he's not smiling. And he has such a gorgeous smile.
He's just a fantastic beard and just like fruit-a-doo.
My God.
You want to give him a hug, you know? It's like you want to give him a hug and say, let's go drink some gold.
I drink mead with him.
Absolutely.
And on another kind of lighter Game of Thrones note, I'm not even going to bother pronouncing his name because I know I'll mess it up, but the mountain that rides.
Yeah.
There was a fantastic little video of him and his girlfriend, who I would describe her as a tiny thing, but she may very well be my height compared to him. But he was basically like bench pressing her and doing curls with her.
Yeah, that is so quality. Yeah.
It was great, like doing deadlifts with her.
He's so crazy. I mean, I've seen him in like a fair amount of things, like especially like watching his strongman stuff. I mean, that dude, watching him do strongman, it's just like you go, damn, because he's just so friggin' strong.
It's great. That's see, I'm excited now, and I really hope everything comes into fruition. I know the world's a little bit crazy. That's one of the reasons why me and Parker haven't been able to like hang out IRL.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah, it'll happen. It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you doing?
So I got to thank you for coming on board. This is super nice.
This was an absolute blast. Thank you so much.
I'll have to have you back on for something else. We'll think of something.
Oh, sure. That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have anything going on like your internet life that you would like the good people to know about?
Nah, I'm just basically, I occasionally post some inspirational photos from Bill the Cat up on Snapchat.
Oh, there you
But beyond that, I'm really not doing a whole lot online. I've kind of taken a break mostly from podcasting to work on my professional sitting on my behind career, and like trying to work on myself and my mental health and my physical health and get into shape and be able to stand up tall. That tall is a joke. I'm 5'5".
Yep.
And otherwise just try and just be the best person that I can be, because something, I mean, this is, forgive the minor philosophical waxing here, but we're in the middle of, to quote everything that we see everywhere, unprecedented times. And if we have the energy to change, we often find ourselves unable to do anything about it, because congratulations, we're all hanging out at our homes, and if we're responsible, we're hanging out at our homes. If we're irresponsible, we're going to Florida. But we are just trying to make it through and see what the next day brings, and hope that one day we don't have to wear masks all the time. And one of the things I'm really trying to do is just find the positivity where I can get it. And I'm trying to make my own positivity. I'm reading more. I'm exercising. I'm doing what I can. And I know that a lot of people don't have the luxury of being able to do that. So I'm super blessed that I can actually take the opportunity to do that. So I hope that anybody out there that's listening and is just kind of down in the doldrums and is really concerned about, like, what are we going to do next and how are we going to live, try breathing and try to take care of yourselves, because each one of us can only take care of ourselves.
That was beautiful, man.
He says as he's like stumbles to the end and goes, wow, man, just like, what the hell should I say next? Something about boobs. But
you know what? Boobs are good for mental health.
Boobs are great for mental health.
Mm-hmm. But no, we're all about that here. We're all about self-care and self-love, and like, if your definition of self-care is listening to a shitty podcast and pouring yourself a glass of wine at the end of the night, I'm not going to judge you.
Yeah, eat a bonbon. Have a good day.
Exactly. So Parker, thank you so much for being on board. You watched this enough. Do you think you can you do Amanda's bit for me?
Oh shit. Let's see. It may not be happy.
It may not be the end, but you are always welcome to this party. I'm Sam Logston, and peace out.
Take care, everybody.